Hello everybody and welcome. Today I'm just going to show you in a few short clips of video the process of polishing these rocks from start to finish. I'm going to go outside and we'll go through the raw rocks as they are and then show you what they look like when they have been out of the polishing process. So first of all we start with raw rock, then they go into a rotary tumbler and that's on quite a heavy grit. We'll go through the grits, and then they go into a vibe tumbler and that does the last four sections of polishing. It's not a quick process. It takes probably about 3 weeks start to finish, and hopefully you like the end result. Okay, let's go outside and have a look at the raw rocks. Okay, so in this bucket here I've got a mixture of all the rocks that I'm going to cut, and this is some lepidolite and it's a very, very soft rock. I'm going to cut it today, but I am not going to be tumbling it with everything else because it's only 2 to 3 on the Mohs scale, so it needs to be carefully tumbled with something of an equal Mohs scale. Here we've got some beautiful mookaite, some reds and yellows of the mookaite there, and a bit of merlinite in there, some merlinite on the edge of that. But look at all the different colour ranges, even in banded tiger iron in there, all sorts of different colours, all mixed. And got some more mookaite there, banded iron, look at that, beautiful colours. That's another piece of lepidolite, I put that on the other side there, keep them separate. And this, I love this dendritic opal. Look at all the dendrites in there, beautiful colours. See how that polishes up, see if that turns out nice. I love it. I love the yellows and the greens and the dendrites, and then you've got a sort of dark red oxide ridden host rock around the outside. It's almost like a husk, isn't it, when you look at it? Look at the detail in that. It looks great when it's wet. It almost looks like it's polished, and that's how it should look when it's finished. It should look really nice and shiny, but it's relatively soft, so will probably lose. You always do when you tumble rocks and tumble them into crystals. You lose a good content of them, so they'll come out smaller. And there's some more. Look at that, yellow and green. Yum, just beautiful colours. See the dendrites? They look like mini ferns. And that's some merlinite, and that's quite fragile stuff. I'll be interested to see how that actually tumbles, and it's got some opalite on the top. The Aussies call it opalite, but it's actually dendritic opal. And that merlinite's beautiful. It's like 2 rocks in one, that. It's lovely. Very good for you, very, very healthy for you. What do we got? Some more merlinite. And see that weird husk it has on it? It's very interesting rock, very interesting crystal. That's got quite a bit of husk on it, so I'll be interested to see how that tumbles. Should be quite good. I'll cut a bit of the husk off, you see. And look at that, isn't that fantastic? This dendritic opal, that's more yellow in that than there is green. That's the husk. And then the oxides from the red. That's just stunning, the colours in that. Just amazing. And what do we got? Yep, some mookaite. That almost looks like the colours of Run. Lovely, beautiful mookites. Amazing colour. And there you go again, dendritic opal. That's quite greeny with a yellow sort of heart to it. A lot of dendrites in it. You can see the crust on it. You might mistake it for a piece of cheese. Killaloe jasper, some blues and reds. That's just gorgeous. What do we got here? This is some more mookaite. That's going to come out really nice. And this is print stone, those deep purples. This is very, very soft, and I'm not going to tumble this with, this will be tumbled by itself because it's a sort of sandstone and it goes to nothing. Has to be very gently tumbled. And some Killaloe, beautiful Killaloe jasper. Look at the colours. Couldn't make it up, could you? Beautiful colours. And some more Killaloe. I don't know how that's going to fare up in the tumble. It might lose quite a lot of that as well. And that's lovely. A Killaloe jasper. Oh, it's gorgeous. Beautiful colours. Really like that. It's my favourites. There's some mookaite. It's more pinky, isn't it? Very delicate pinky. See how that tumbles. And that's some praise. It's really hard, so it can be quite difficult to cut. It'll take a long time to cut, but that looks gorgeous when it's cut, and the colours are very strong. And this is some mookaite which I test tumbled, so it's been partially tumbled. It really needs to go through some more. You can see the dendrites on there. See how it holds up, because mookaite fractures. And this is another piece that I did a bit earlier as well. Look at the banding and the colours and the colour depth, the yellows and blues in there. Is that not beautiful? Look at that. All in one rock. How amazing. It's like a rainbow. And that's another piece of mookaite. And you can see the sharp edges on that. And you have to be careful with it. It does fracture. So this is more print stone, and very typical of Western Australia. I'm going to do some videos of this because it's a most beautiful crystal. Polishes gorgeously. It's very soft. And some more mookaite. A very purpley yellow mookaite that. It's got some white in there as well. It's lovely. And then we've got some little pieces of the typical purple and yellow, the most common mookaite that you'll see. And this one here is also the same. It's got a lot of orange in this, like fire orange in there. It really reflects the earth of Western Australia. When you look at that, that's what the ground looks like. Look at that. Beautiful. That's mookaite. Be interested to see how that polishes. Hopefully in a few weeks' time, it's going to look quite good. That's stunning. All the dendrites in there, yellows, gentle purples in there, white, blue lines across those dendrites. Gorgeous. I love it. And that's the little last piece, and that's of Killaloe jasper. Beautiful. And Killaloe comes from the Kennedy Ranges. We'll see what they look like. I'm going to put them all in the tumbler. But before I do that, I'm going to cut the edges off, all the rough edges. Some of these will be cut down, but I want to get rid of the rough edges just to reduce the amount of time that they actually take in the tumbler. If you smooth the edges off, then you can reduce your tumbling time by about a week, which is quite good going.
Okay, so the first grit we use is a stage 4 grit, and it's silicon carbide. Now, a lot of people say you should start off at 60 to 80, but what I did was I cut the edges of those crystals or those rocks off to make them as rounding or as smooth as possible. So the grits have less work to do, that's the idea. So this is 26 to 46, so it's a very coarse grit. And you only need this in a tumbler, in a rotary tumbler, which I'll show you, which looks very like that. You can take the top off. I'll see if I can show you better. I put a little washer in between there. Okay, so you take that off, and then the middle comes out. You just have to release it. It's quite stiff. And then you put all your rocks in there, and then you would place this grit, which I'm going to see if I can show you now. See how coarse that is? That's quite coarse grit. That's the first grit that goes in. So you would leave this grit, and with a tumbler of that size, probably about, I probably put 5 of these in, 5 to 6 of these in. And your tumbler, let me just put this back in its correct place. There we go. So a tumbler of that size with that amount of grit, the tumbler would be full to, say, there, 2/3 full of crystals or rocks. There'll be rocks at that stage. And then you just put the water about an inch below the top of the rocks. So effectively this could be looking half full of water. With this in, you put the lids back on, the lid goes on like that. The whole process lasts about 2 days. I don't want to put this in for any more than 2 days. And you screw that one tight. And then it sits on a rotary tumbler and spins like this. Okay. So after your 2 days, you will then go to the next grit, which is called step 2. So this one isn't quite as coarse. See, it's 220 grit. And again, everything has to be rinsed out. You mustn't forget to rinse the crystals. I rinse them and scrub them all with a toothbrush in between each stage. So this one, see that's a little bit less coarse. You can see that's almost powdery, isn't it? So 2 days of 220 grit. Pop that back. Don't want that escaping. So in between each stage, the crystals are rinsed, and I put them in a sieve, a plastic sieve. That's a small version of it. Imagine a much bigger plastic sieve. And then I'll put a lining of muslin, just fine cotton muslin in between. So as I'm rinsing, any of the grit remains in the muslin. It doesn't go down your drains. It needs to remain in the muslin, and then you just scrape that off into newspaper or whatever, or you can take it off some grass somewhere and rinse it out in some grass. But you don't want to be putting that down your drain. It's not good. So the next one is a stage 3. You can see I've written on there, lest I forget. And this is 400 grit. So now it's looking more like powder, isn't it? When you look at it, it's far more like powder. See how fine that is. Now that I'll put in for 3 days. Okay? It can go in for 2 days. It just depends on how it responds. You can feel your rocks getting smoother and smoother. They're not developing a polish yet. It isn't till for me, it isn't until they get to 4 till they start to get shiny. Some may start to get shiny at stage 3, but you don't want to count on that being it. So then the next one, so your next stage after 3 is step 4. So I'm using this step 4, and you're looking at 800, round about 800 grit on this. Some of them may be 6, but we're not using silicon carbide anymore. We're now using aluminium oxide. You can see the colour has changed. Doesn't matter that I've dubbed that in. It doesn't matter in that. See, that's like almost like talcum powder. It's very, very fine. See that? Completely different. So that's aluminium oxide. This is now going to start to polish. So this will go in here for, I'll leave this in for 4 days. Every now and then I'll check it. If I need to add more polish, I will add more polish. And the final grit is this. It's 8000 grit. And this is like they say it's super polish, but it's really good. They call it rock tumbler. I wouldn't put it in a rock tumbler. It needs to go into a vibe, not a rotary tumbler. So I'll take the top off this, and this pretty much is the same aluminium oxide, but it'll look almost the same as the other. Very, very fine. See that? It's really fine. So I will put that in for probably 4 days. It will then be rinsed out again. The rocks rinsed out again. I won't bother to scrub them at that point. And then put them in with another fresh lot. And that's your final polish, 8000, and that's what brings the rocks up to be polished. Okay, let's go through the rocks and I'll show you the finished result. Okay, so one of the first stones that I'm going to show you is fairly local, and it's a spotted dolerite. Look at the beautiful greens and shades of green in there. It's a gorgeous stone, and that's quite local to where I live. So this is praise. This is called praise. This comes from Western Australia, and you'll have seen the rough version of that. Now this is the polished version. And it's almost two-tone, but it's beautiful, isn't it? That's praise. And that's from Western Australia. This is mookaite. Now look at the different colours. We've got purples, soft purples there, yellows, white, creamy white. And this is also from Western Australia. This one has actually got dendrites in it. So you see the little black squiggly things on there? That's a dendrite. You generally find that they're surface and they will disappear after a while of polishing. But that's mookaite. That's really lovely. Dendrite opal, they call this. It's also referred to as opalite. Now, opalite in Australia is something they've called opal rock. Now, this isn't the flash opal. I'm going to show you a piece of that in a minute. But this is opalite. They've referred to opal as opalite for over 100 years. And look how beautiful. That's dendritic opal, you see? Look at that. Dendrite opal. See all the little black veins? They're the dendrites. It's polished beautiful. So the Australians also have called opalite for, like I say, over a century. But you may know, I've just bought a piece of this to show you, you may know opalite as this stuff. Man-made, best described as plastic. I don't want to be too rude, but I could say worthless. Pretty worthless. Okay. So this is the real McCoy. This is opal. And like I say, the Aussies might call it opalite. Dendritic opal. Absolutely beautiful. This is a local stone just off a beach near where I live. A river beach, not a sea beach in this occasion. And it's a form of sandstone, but there's hematite and iron oxides in this red part. But that polish up beautifully. And I only picked it up because it was unusual. It looked a unusual rock, but it polishes nicely. So it's got hematite in here, You can see the red colour with the browny colour, if you like, the oxide showing in there. And if you look very carefully, you can almost see like a fine banding, very fine. This is also a local rock, local crystal. This is just plain communal garden porphyry. So you can see the orange in there. That's feldspar. That's what you find in granite. But isn't that beautiful? So if I was to slice that, it would have almost like snowflake strands in there. But that's come up a beautiful colour. And that's communal garden porphyry. And it does look pretty in the rough. And if you spot it, it polishes beautifully. It's really easy to polish. Porphyry. This is a piece of sandstone. So this bit here doesn't really smooth. It's got other bits in it, I guess, as well, but it's got veins of quartz. Now, I thought that might have calcite in it, but I have put it under the UV light and there's no calcite. It's not UV reactive. But a pretty stone nonetheless. Now, I love this stuff. This comes from Western Australia. This was my Australian tumble, really, and I made it up with some local, filled up the pot with some local stuff. But this was generally all Australian. This is called Killaloe jasper. You can see the bands of the red jasper in there. But Killaloe is mainly from the northern part of Western Australia. Look at that. Isn't that stunning? It is just a beautiful, beautiful, colourful rock. And it polishes absolutely amazingly. It really is great at polishing. So you've got some yellow jasper in there, red jasper. Sometimes you get blues, lines of greens. Fabulous. Not really very well known outside of Australia, but you'll find versions of it probably in America, banded jaspers and things. You probably won't find these colour mix, the same colour mix. Killaloe jasper. This is a communal garden piece of granite. Doesn't it polish beautifully? So there you see the orange like we saw in the porphyry, and that's the feldspar. Heaps of quartz in granites, that's what makes it lovely and shiny. But just your average granite. Amazing. Polishes beautifully. This is mookaite. Isn't that amazing? Almost greeny parts here. Dark purples there, pale purples here. Dendrites, see the dendrites there? Look at that. This stuff polishes amazingly, but it can fracture. That could easily just split, and I'll show you a piece that has split later on. So that's mookaite, one of the many different types of mookaite. I'll show you a different type. And this is like the dark reds here, almost purpley, and the yellow mookaite. Still mookaite, but it's so easy to fracture. And it's very sharp. So if it does fracture, you've got to be careful. And whenever I have been polishing these crystals, without fail, particularly with mookaite or any of them, they have a very, very high silica content. And you always, regardless of what rock you're cutting or polishing, you always have a face mask on. Absolutely always. That's different again, more orangey, but this is mookaite, still mookaite. Imagine coming across beautiful coloured rocks like that. Even when they're raw, they're stunning. So you've got like a red going into orange, deep red, vermilion, yellowy, beautiful colours. Little hint of dendrites there. That's mookaite. This is also mookaite, but look how different it is. So you're getting pale pinky purples, yellow. It looks like ice cream, doesn't it? You'd probably stick that on a cone and eat that. Might hurt your teeth. But that is also mookaite. All this stuff, when you polish it, you start to see, you get a very thick sediment in the water, what you're polishing with. Or if you're cutting it, you'll get a very thick sediment and it'll look like marzipan, and that's the stuff that gives people silicosis. So this is why you must be properly masked. Not a face mask, a respirator. Always wear safety glasses, because when you're polishing them, if you're polishing them against a rotary wheel, which sometimes I do, it can spin off that wheel out of your hand and straight into your face. And I've had quite a few crystals do that. So you need some eye protection. Look at this dendritic opal. Look at all the dendrites. Can you see all the little black lines on there? That whitey pink stuff is just a host rock around it. Look at that. Amazing colours. Just amazing colours. Almost look like someone signed the artwork. Really big yellows in there. Dendritic opal. I'll show you some more. Now this one is more green. A lot more green in that. Almost like little ferns, the dendrites. Little black ferns. It's even got a hint of blue up there. See that? The top. So this is some more dendritic opal. See all the pinks? It's like a breccia, what we call brecciated rock in there as well. Dendritic opal. It almost looks bluey green in there. But it's beautiful. That pinks, rose colour, isn't that lovely? So this part of the opal doesn't have many dendrites, and it just looks like plain opal till you start to turn it over. And then you start to see all the dendrites. Absolutely beautiful colours. Again, this is given to fracturing. You'll see the fracture in there. That's lovely. Here we go. So this is praise. And it's almost like a turquoisey green. And it polishes beautifully. Look at the colours in that. Absolutely stunning colours. Praise, Prase, Western Australia. Killaloe jasper. Look at that. Beautiful colours. Absolutely stunning banding. Look at how many colours you get in that. It's orange, yellow, green, red. That's Killaloe jasper. And that comes from the Kennedy Ranges in Western Australia. It's just amazing. I'll zoom in on this for you. See what you can see. It's just beautiful. And this is just communal garden granite. Slightly different, less quartz in this. But it polishes lovely. A lot of feldspar, high feldspar content, and quite a lot of metal content in there as well, probably lead. Given the area where it comes from, I would think it would be galena.
Well, that's a beautiful stone, and they feel fabulous in your hands. A lot of energy comes from granite. You mustn't discount it. It's a beautiful stone. So this is septarian. This is what it looks like on the outside, a bit rough. But then we slice right through the middle. And oh, look what happens. Yay! And that polishes absolutely beautifully. It really does. Lovely, lovely. I've got a video of this coming up shortly, so don't miss that. This is just an ordinary black river rock. It's basalt, but it polishes very nicely. Just basalt. Now, if that was black tourmaline, that would be a really, really high polish, almost like a mirror finish. But it isn't. That's how I know that it's basalt. Isn't that amazing? Now, when you zoom right in on this, which I'm going to do on the other side, you see that this is a fossil. Again, the black host rock is basalt. But if I zoom right in on this, you'll see that they are little shells, tiny little shells. It's just a fossil, and it's stunning. And look how well it polishes. Beautiful. This is a waterline agate. See the waterline in it? Just in the middle there? Along there? Waterline. They polish nicely. Just tumble away beautifully. They're really hard. So this was an agate from Australia. And it has got a few fractures in it. And you can just make out some parallel banding on there. Lovely. That's agate. Isn't that lovely? Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. A lot of banding. It's got a lot of depth to it, they have. It's only a small agate, but it's very pretty. This is more Killaloe jasper. Try and zoom in on this, but just look at all the colour banding in there. That is just gorgeous. Look at that. Very fine banding. See how delicate this stuff can be. Not just a chunk gone out of that in the tumbling process. It happens. So how many colours are in there? See if you can see how many colours. It's just beautiful. Killaloe jasper, Western Australia. This is more Killaloe, and as you can see, it's slightly different. It's more orangey, this. Tiny little bit of dendritic behaviour. And more green. There's a bit of green going on in the top there. That's lovely. So there you get really good show of the banding. What I would say is along there, there's like blue. Can you see that blue line as well? So we've got reds, oranges, yellows, greens, blues, blacks. You think I'd just dip this in a whole lot of paint? That's a natural coloration. Isn't that stunning? Wow, that's beautiful. This is merlinite. It's becoming quite popular crystal. It's almost got pale blue streaks, a lot of black, a lot of dendritic. It looks almost dendritic. And this is from Western Australia as well.
So you'll see quite a lot of merlinite. This stuff is really temperamental. It fractures all the time, and I'll show you what I mean. That stayed relatively intact. I'll show you. This is what happens to merlinite. The top disappears. It's very fragile. And you can try and rectify it by, whenever you see a fracture in the natural rock before it's been polished, just try and get rid of it, because it'll fracture off in the tumbling process anyway. How fabulous is that? Imagine a slice of that in a clasp around your neck. It would be beautiful, or in a ring. How lovely is that? A lot of banding in there. Almost looks like tiger iron banding. Look at that. Is that lovely? Like a banded iron. Bits of mookaite. Jasper. It's lovely. So this would be your usual mookaite that you see. You would come across these colours time and again. I thought this was going to fracture because it had so many fracture lines in it. But it stayed all in one. You can see like a very pale banding in there. Colour change in there as well. How many colours are in there? Pinks. It's almost like a greeny there. Purples. See where the white is there? That'll be another, if you were to cut in there, there'll be another lump of white in there. Deep purpley reds. You can almost see like a tube of white would go through there. That's a band there, arch of white there. The many different blends of colours and shades of colours that are involved in mookaite. This is the usual colouring of mookaite. Purple and yellow. All about your lower three chakras. And then when you have the purples, it's the crown. But some of these have all the colours, especially like the Kilolo Jasper as well. They have all the colours of your chakras in them. There's a lot to be said for that. To have all the colours of your chakras in one rock, it's amazing. How amazing is that? See how it's lost its corner? They're fragile. They're very fragile. They're very sharp. But that is glorious, glorious mookaite. And this stuff, this light colour here, is incredibly, it's full of silica, and that's the stuff you do not want to breathe in at all. It's the stuff that causes silicosis. One of my favourite tiny little pieces, full of dendrites, delicate hues. Look at that. It almost looks like hyacinth jasper. Very, very similar to hyacinth jasper, and I think hyacinth jasper only comes from Utah. But it's the Utah version of this. And then on the top, look at that. How amazing. Mookaite. When I was talking about opalite, this is proper opal. Boulder opal, but this is proper opal. Now this comes from Lightning Ridge in Australia. I know you get some from Cuba PD, but this one is Lightning Ridge.
Thought you might like to see that. More local crystals. I only pick up these local rocks because something that looks like that is different, and it's got like quartz banding across the top. Lots of quartz. I thought there might be quartzite in it. It looks like it. And a bit of feldspar. The host rock is a type of sandstone. There's no calcite. I thought there might be calcite, but there's no UV reaction at all. It's pretty though, isn't it? It's pretty nonetheless. You'd have that in your collection, wouldn't you? This is serpentine. It's just picked this up off the beach. It's serpentine in a host rock there. We get quite a bit of serpentine. We're not quite the yellowy, we're more greeny version of it. Polishes nicely, feels nice in the hand as well. And this is sort of like it's almost like a chocolate jasper with lumps of quartz in it. Isn't it bizarre? Look how beautifully that polishes. It's lovely. And this last little piece of granite. I do quite a lot of polishing granite crystals. And I can tell you, if you have a bucket load of granite, you will feel that energy. You will absolutely feel the energy of it. But look how lovely they polish. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching that. I hope you enjoyed that. I thought you might like the various processes to polishing the crystals. It's not quite straightforward. It's a long process. And you're usually looking at 3 to 4 weeks. I hope you enjoyed the different colours. And that was my Australian collection. And I just added a few local crystals in there to top the boxes up. So I'll do some more in a few weeks' time. But I thought you'd enjoy the process. I don't do that with every crystal that I have. Most of mine are bought, but that's what I do with those that I buy raw. I hope you've enjoyed that, and hopefully we'll see you again next time. So thank you for watching, and if you would like and subscribe, if you would please. Any comments you've got or any questions, please put them in the box below. I'd like to hear. Thank you for that. Bye for now. Bye.